Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm Lori Ross. I'm one of the co-chairs of Women United, and along with Jessica Bain-Hogan, who couldn't join us today, but wishes she could. So thank you. This is a wonderful crowd today, so thanks for coming. I'm going to start with a land acknowledgement. So, as a visitor to this land, I would like to begin by acknowledging this traditional territory's longer existence and its significance for the Indigenous people who lived and continue to live on Turtle Island. We are situated on traditional Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Huron-Wendat land, and there are Métis and other non-status First people from many Indigenous nations present in our community today. This acknowledgement symbolizes KFL&A United Way's first step of many on a path to Indigenous reconciliation in a respectful manner. I wanted to add my own personal acknowledgement. Am I getting too much reverb? I love the water, and I always feel privileged when I have a chance to spend time in our amazing lakes and rivers. I love to paddle or swim or just watch all the water birds, and it just makes me feel centered and peaceful. As a settler, it's an honor to be able to be a visitor on this land. So, welcome, everyone. This is our second Women United event in person of 2022. Thank you for coming. And you know we're here at the Community Food Redistribution Warehouse because of you. We listened to what our members were interested in finding out about and looked at the surveys, and there's a great deal of interest in food security amongst this group. So I'm delighted that we have a panel of experts, along with the leadership of Bhavna and her team, to tell us more about issues like what are we doing to support those who don't have access to food or healthy food in the community. And in particular, with the rise of inflation over the last number of months in particular, what are we doing to help those who were already in a precarious position and now with wages and government supports not keeping pace, some are even further behind than they were before. So before we get a chance to hear from our guest panelists today, I want to thank our sponsors whose snacks you're enjoying right now. Sherry Agnew. There you go. Sherry, thank you. Thank you, Sherry, and then her sister Leanne O'Mara from Tim Hortons. Leanne couldn't be here today, but Sherry is, and I'd like her to come up here and just say a few words. Sherry.
Thank you, Lori, and thank you everyone for coming today. On behalf of my sister Leanne O'Mara, we're just happy to be able to sponsor and have you all here. And we thank the United Way for bringing awareness to this issue of food security. We know it's very important, and thank you for learning about it. Have a great time tonight.
Thanks, Sherry, and thank you again for the wonderful snacks that you're providing us today. So I mentioned we're going to hear more from some of the leaders in our community who are addressing food security. But as I learn more about this issue and the needs in our community, I'm so impressed with the United Way and how it's a collaborator and a facilitator and a creative problem solver to help make this happen and bring together this wonderful group of people who are making a difference in our community. And that leadership from the United Way starts at the top with Bhavna Varma, our executive director. So I'd like Bhavna to take over from here.
Thank you, everyone. Am I too loud? He promised he'd lower it if I spoke too loudly, so I'll try again. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. It's wonderful to see so many of you Women United members out today. And at this Community Food Redistribution Warehouse. Jillian keeps saying I should have a simpler name and no acronyms, but CFRW kind of works to simplify it. But thank you for being here. After this panel presentation, we'll go back and show you the rest of the warehouse. It's not a large space, but it is echoing. It's okay? I can hear the echo. Okay. So food security has been an issue in our community forever. It's probably been around for a long time. During the pandemic, it actually just made us even more aware of how fragile all of us are. We're just like one step away from being one of the, this is, I hear it echoing. I'm sorry. Can we, do, yeah? Okay. No, still echoing. Do we need to switch off one of those? It's my magnetic personality, electric personality. Okay. Um, so food security is really an issue in our community. It always has been, but it really came to the forefront when we found people who just realized that they didn't have enough money to pay the rent and to feed their family, and it's just getting worse. 1 in 7 Canadians live in a home that is experiencing food insecurity. 1 in 3 children are at risk of going to school hungry. And that number has increased. It was 1 in 4 prior to the pandemic. In 2021, the United Way supported programs that provided 19,000 students with healthy meals, whether they were virtual or they were in school. The cost of food has gone up 5 to 7%. We all know that. Imagine social service agencies trying to cope with that increase, as well as the increasing demand on them. One stat that really shocked me was last year we served 40,000 people were served meals. That's up from 20,000 in 2018, pre-pandemic. So again, the numbers are astronomical. We also know that last year, our agencies who do such fabulous work served 233,000 meals in Kingston, Frontenac, Lennox, and Addington. Those are staggering numbers. And while it's awful to hear this increase, what I'm so grateful for is that we were actually able to respond to this increased demand. Imagine if our agencies had not been able to step up and serve the number of meals required. We'd have a lot of people really hungry. And it's awful to think of people going hungry in a country like Canada, in a community like Kingston, in a region like KFL&A. We're so grateful our agencies are there. So with us today are some panel members who are going to talk about the issue and what's being done about it. That's what's important, is what our agencies are doing to respond to the need. And through the pandemic, they didn't have the luxury of being able to work virtually, because food is not something you can do remotely, right? So they had to find a way to be creative, and we've got some amazing examples of how they responded. So I'm going to start with the creation of this food redistribution warehouse, the CFRW. Sorry, Jillian, another acronym. But it started because during the pandemic, we started to see a lot of restaurants and other organizations who had to get rid of large quantities of food in a hurry, and we didn't actually have a place in our community to accept all the donations. So Lionhearts had some space. Every agency, we were borrowing, food sharing projects. Fridge, because we had, I forget how many cartons of chocolate milk donated, and there was all this happening, and we realized that wouldn't it be nice if we had a central place, because not every agency can take truckloads of food and accept skids of all the stuff that was being given. So as a community, it's really important. So you'll hear about that today. With us today, actually the food redistribution came, we had, I forget how many meetings, Sean, we met regularly, almost every week for months through the pandemic, all virtually, trying to plan this and see how we could respond to this increasing demand. How can we help the agencies with what they needed to serve this increased demand on food and food boxes, as well as take the large donations that were coming. So this food redistribution warehouse is the result of a lot of careful thought on how we could work collaboratively as a community. And we're really grateful that Lionheart stepped up to be the one to sign the lease and take care of all the logistics. But this really is a collaborative. It's a cooperative, so to speak, of all the agencies that serve food, whether in their programs or as their core business. So with us today is Emma Cox, who manages this, and I don't know how she does it, because anytime you say anything to Emma, she always has the answer, yep, can be done. And so whether it's a marker you need, or it's food, or food boxes, or a fridge to store food in, she's always got the yes. So Emma?
Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Emma Cox, and as Pavna said, I am the facility manager here at the CFRW, the most beautiful warehouse in Kingston. If If you had asked me a couple years ago if I'd be managing a warehouse, I would have said no. I would be too miserable and grumpy in the dark. But as you can see, we have a lot of beautiful light in this space. And as mentioned, here we're able to do so much. You can see the space around. You can see it's quite full. All of the different items that we're able to accept. Prior to this, as Pablo mentioned, Lionhearts was working out of a church. So you can imagine in the winter when large shipments of items were coming in, we were outside slogging in the snow. Here we have this beautiful door. The vehicles can pull right in. We're able to unload. And we're also able to accept massive amounts of items. Back in the spring, we had almost 30 pallets of potatoes come in. We have our lift over here, so the trucks can back right up, put things on the lift, take them off. We have our amazing forklift that Bernie Robinson donated, once again, making all of this possible. So the partnership here is wonderful. You know, along with the City of Kingston, United Way, and many other partners, all of the agencies that came together were able to make magic happen and accept and help have different groups in to do so many different things, whether it's sorting produce, slicing bread, storing items for somebody who maybe needs a little extra freezer space while they're processing other items. So it's giving us that capability to accept millions of dollars of different items. Right now, we've got canned tomatoes, beans, flour, sugar, many other things. So it really shows us how when we come together as a community, we can make those really big things happen. Because if a truck pulled up to Martha's table, Rhonda would say, where am I gonna put these pallets of things? You know, it would be hard enough having to hand bomb it through the door. So they can give us a call here and say, Emma, you know, we've got 2 pallets of soft drinks that have been donated. Could you bring them in? You know, we'll take what we need and then we'll share the rest with all of the other agencies, which is also the really amazing thing. So thank you for coming. Thank you for listening and learning. And we have some amazing other speakers that'll be coming up. Thank you.
Thanks, Emma. And really, she is a can-do person. It's just amazing when you pick up the phone or send her an email. Another can-do person is Sean Sargent, who many of you may know. He is the board chair of Lionhearts, and we've invited him to say a few words. Lionhearts really stepped up to the challenge. They were not in the food business initially, and he'll tell you how they pivoted. One of the things, we've got this wonderful handout that I'd like you to take before you leave. It's called Food Security. It's on the table over there. Food reclamation and redistribution. So the way we handle food security is in 4 different areas: food reclamation, redistribution, meal programs, food boxes, and then food specifically for children and families. So you can read more about all the programs. We've got a few here today, but Lionhearts has just done an amazing job and continues to do an amazing job around the area of food reclamation and redistribution. So Sean?
Thank you all for being here tonight. And I think that is the big thing. You're here. And the reason why we can be here is because you are. And the United Way. I think they missed that part. And so I actually recently was chatting with somebody, and Emma mentioned the word magic. And there's a big part of that that comes together to make things possible. So you have to ask yourself, have you ever tried to whistle a symphony? Doesn't work so well, at least not when I try it, right? There's too many parts. There's too many people that have to perform in such an amazing way to make it work. You can hear one person make a mistake. And sort of that whole process comes together, and that's what the United Way does. They're the conductor. They're the ones making sure people are practicing, checking in on things to make sure that things are actually working. Thank you. As much as we hate those calls sometimes. It's huge. It makes a difference. And that's why we can do what we can do. This past year, prior to the pandemic, we were doing a lot of food recovery. But this past year, the actual amount that we've been able to recover has already surpassed double what we were doing before the pandemic. So as of just a week or 2 ago, we passed the $5 million worth of food that has actually been donated and redistributed in that community. Yeah. It's huge. And you're going to see how that affects some of our other speakers this week, talking about where they actually can make use of those amazing donations that are coming from all over the place. Emma touched base on the fact that we've had very large donations. New partners, Nestle Canada, their plant in Trenton, now is actually reaching out quarterly with, I think last week was 53,000 pounds of food. All sorts of different things. It's remarkable. And it's remarkable to see how all of the partner agencies that we deliver to make use of that. They're ingenious. Rhonda will tell you the amazing things that they get and how they can actually transform that into remarkable meals. It's staggering sometimes, the magic, again, that they can actually make out of those things. We're pretty excited because we've actually got a couple of other really important programs that do a lot, we feel, have a lot of impact on food insecurity in the city. One of them is our newer program. It's our food box program for students. So for kids who may not have actually got that much over the weekend, how do we reach them? The person that knows the best is their teacher. On Monday morning, when one of the kids have come in and haven't had much to eat through the weekend, they know. They are able to work with the Food Sharing Project and actually get them some remarkable food while they're actually in school. But what happens over the weekends when there isn't a project, when there isn't an actual program? So it's been one of those things that was identified, and we were able to sort of just pivot and make sure that now on the weekends, we're able to deliver a big box of food that's accessible for students. Making sure, for example, that the bread itself is already sliced. It's hard to make a sandwich if it's not sliced, right? So just over here, you'll see 2 big industrial bread slicers. And a team of volunteers comes in every night, and they slice a few hundred loaves of bread and bag a whole bunch of other stuff that's actually just been brought in from a local bakeries. Huge, huge addition to those boxes. And you can imagine all the other things you can think of. We probably all grew up on instant oatmeal at some point. And that's a big part of that too, right? Just all those things that are accessible but still nutritious. That, and the third program right now is our community nutrition program. We have a lot of food coming in, and we're able to transform that into pre-made, ready-to-go meals. Something that someone can take, pop in the microwave or into the freezer if required, and we deliver that to all the different shelters in town that are looking for some help. It makes their lives easier to have something that's really nutritious, that's made from scratch, that they know exactly what's in there. Nutrition is one of the biggest portions of things that we can do to help individuals who are recovering in any way. We know that, right? Medicine is great, but that food speaks right to your soul. It's important. So we're pretty excited. We have some new things coming down the pike as well, but we also have some pretty remarkable people here to speak. So I'm going to let you guys go. Thanks.
I should have mentioned, we'll be open for questions. We just want to get through the panel, and then we'll answer any questions you might have. So just write them down or note them in your phone. Our next speakers are from Loving Spoonful, and many of you have probably heard about this amazing organization. They work closely with farmers. They're all about fresh product, urban agriculture. I won't steal that thunder, but we've got Michelle and Ayla here to tell you more. You've got 2 mics if you need.
I'm going to use some notes because it's been a while since I've been in front of a group of folks, and we're just so happy to be here, and we're looking forward to the opportunity to speak with you a little bit about Loving Spoonful. So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Michelle Kehoe. I'm the program director with Loving Spoonful. Again, thank you all for being here today. We look forward to the opportunity to share with you a bit more about Loving Spoonful and the good ripples we hope to continue creating through Kingston and area. Loving Spoonful was founded in 2008 by a group of like-minded social justice advocates. Originally focusing on food reclamation, Loving Spoonful soon began to grow beyond that. Based on community input and need, we began delivering a host of programs with and for the community. Loving Spoonful aims to build community around good food, and we do that largely through our programs we deliver and the policies in which we advocate for. As an organization who's been working in food security for almost 15 years, we realize what a critical topic this is, knowing especially that rates of food insecurity continue to rise year after year. However, we cannot talk about food security without speaking to food sovereignty. Loving Spoonful has recently made a strategic shift that encourages us to celebrate food sovereignty in all aspects of our organization. Food sovereignty is a concept that embodies the right to food. This concept is inherently political and justice-oriented. La Via Campencia defines food sovereignty as the right of peoples to healthy and culturally appropriate foods produced through ecologically sound and sustainable methods, and their right to define their own food and agriculture systems. So what does that mean? Essentially, food sovereignty puts those who produce, distribute, and consume foods at the heart of food systems and food policies rather than markets or corporations. Food sovereignty is a direct pathway to achieving food security and food rights for all. Although we've always been an organization who embraces social justice, this shift to lean further towards food sovereignty is an exciting one. We see food sovereignty coming to light in a variety of our programs. For example, in our local food access program, formerly known as Fresh Food Access, we now only reclaim, receive, and redistribute locally grown foods. By doing this, we help to protect the local food system through collaborations with small-scale producers who are also looking to enhance sustainability. Our local food market stands are located in agencies across Kingston and area and offer individuals and families a dignified approach to food access. There's no questions asked, and folks can take what they need. In our GROW project, we work with children and youth in 23 schools across Kingston and area to empower their minds with knowledge and fill their hearts with connection. We hope that through the GROW project, we inspire and spark curiosity among these children and youth to become advocates in their own right and to ensure that generations to come are equipped to make healthy choices, to understand the importance of community connection, and realize the power of local food systems. Finally, in our Community Kitchens program, we empower individuals through a strength-based programming that focuses on skill development, connection, and resilience. Participants gain confidence and agency, and they get to create some pretty fabulous meals at the same time. These programs and the people who run them are the heart of our organization, and they are making substantial changes in the lives of many. To speak to change on a systems level, I'd like to introduce Ayla Fenton, our Food Systems Manager, to share with you how our new programs centered around urban agriculture and food systems are fostering transformational change in Kingston and area.
Thanks. I'm going to use notes because I only have 2 minutes to talk and I could probably take 3 hours up here, so I'm going to try to be concise. I want to talk a little bit about our urban agriculture programs because this is a fairly new area of work for Loving Spoonful. We just launched our urban agriculture program formally at the beginning of 2021, so it's been about a year and a half. We've convened the Kingston Community Gardens Network for much longer than that. There are a couple dozen community gardens throughout Kingston. And what we were finding, especially since the pandemic began, was that we were just getting completely overrun by people wanting to volunteer in gardens, wanting to learn about food production and learn how to produce their own food and how to produce food to donate to Loving Spoonful for redistribution. So we launched this as a whole program. We've been expanding the Community Gardens Network, but we've also been trying to strengthen our Grow Row program by providing more educational resources for home gardeners and community gardeners alike. And then we have recently adopted the Community Harvest program, which was formerly under the wing of KCHC, Kingston Community Health Centers. Community Harvest has a few urban agriculture sites throughout Kingston where our staff A farmer works to grow food with volunteers and neighborhood community members, and then all of that produce is sold at affordable, we run pay what you can markets, basically. So affordable access farmers markets for community members to access food with whatever resources they have. And then more recently, just this year, we've launched the Kingston Community Training Farm, where since July 4th, we've been working with 30 participants, providing a job skills training program, growing food and training people to enter the agricultural sector. And all of that is focused on people who experience barriers to employment, and specifically people who have traditionally been marginalized from the agricultural sector. So women, youth, newcomers, Indigenous and racialized folks, and people living with addictions and mental health issues. So all of that food from all of those different urban agriculture sources is going into our local food access programs and alleviating food insecurity in the community. But the bigger reason that we're doing this is around that longer term systemic change that needs to happen in our food system, because I think anybody here will tell you that food charity is never going to solve food insecurity. Food insecurity is a structural issue, and it requires restructuring the food system from the ground up and learning how to relocalize our food systems and diversify our food systems right here in Kingston is a really crucial first step to move in that direction. And really relying on, I think that for many years, the public discourse around food security has focused on the affordability of food, and we need cheap food, and that's not the solution, because cheap food is just externalizing the suffering and the exploitation and the food insecurity to other people who are working in the food system. 1 in 6 workers in Canada works in the food system, and food workers in general have a rate of food insecurity about 50% higher than the rest of workers in the economy. So we need to be looking at this holistically, and that's why we're working on these projects to try to build resilience in the local food system, working with local farmers who share the same sort of vision. And we are super pleased to be in this space now too, because having this warehouse space is what's making all of this possible. We wouldn't be able to be running this farm this year if we didn't have somewhere to put all of the food that we're growing and be able to store it so that we can distribute it. So big thanks to all of the partners here. And it's such a joy to be doing all of this work with more collaboration because of this space. So thank you.
Thank you.
It's so awesome how our agencies come together and work with each other. And I'm sure 50% or many of you had no idea this was happening. It was behind the radar. They're working so hard. I often say we do our work really well. The one thing we don't do well is remember to tell you all about it. So we're trying to do our best to educate you on some of these issues and the great work that's happening in our community. And these are just 5 of the amazing agencies that we've been able to bring together. We'll keep bringing you more and more because I cannot say enough about our frontline agencies. So 11.7% of seniors live in poverty in Canada. We also know that the rate of people living alone for seniors is 3 times higher in women than men. And that's been proven through our seniors food box. You'll hear about that. One of the things we realized through the pandemic was how many seniors are in their homes without enough money to buy good food. And we're talking about healthy food. And that was a shock to all of us. So we were very grateful for Kingston Community Health Centers and our Retirees United to step up and design a program. And Helen will tell you more about that. But then we also discovered that the number of students, postgraduate students, so Food Sharing Project is working, and Lionhearts are working closely with students in schools. But the number of students who are postgraduate who are also not able to afford food. So again, we've expanded the program to allow for that. So I'm going to introduce Helen, and we are really grateful that Melanie has joined Helen to say a few words to you as well. So Helen.
Thanks, everyone. Can you hear me okay? I don't want to get too close to the mic. Is that good volume? Kingston Community Health Centers has been in existence since 1988, and one of our jobs is to improve the health and well-being of the communities and families that we serve. One of the ways we do that is looking at the issue of food security. I think what a lot of people don't realize is that people that live in poverty have a life expectancy of 8 to 10 years less than the rest of us. Pretty staggering and pretty scary. The increase of high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, all of those things affect our health. So one of the programs that we've had in existence for a number of years is our Good Food Box program. It was a bulk buying club. So what would happen is at the beginning of the month, you'd pay an amount of money and you would take delivery of a fresh produce box at the middle of the month. And it was bulk buying, so you're getting a little bit better of a deal. And we had about 28, 29 host sites across the city where you could buy that box and then take delivery. Well, let's fast forward, folks, to the start of the pandemic. And the scary thing about it was our host sites closed. They weren't open to the pandemic, and the food security issues were still great. We had an affordable access, but people were on the brink of barely being able to survive. So we quickly pivoted that program to an online ordering system. And thank God for partners, because we have friends at Loving Spoonful that stepped up and said, we'll give you some volunteer drivers. They're not working or doing things right now. And we began delivering those affordable boxes door to door. At the same time, we were getting phone calls from people. A lot of people that bought our affordable boxes were folks that were what we would call the working poor. And suddenly their shifts were being canceled, they didn't have hours, and they couldn't even afford those boxes that were affordable. So again, United Way stepped up and supported 250 boxes going out to families and paying particular attention to our Indigenous and our newcomers to Canada, who we know have a much higher rate of food insecurity. So that was one of the things we did. Well, pandemic continued. United Way was getting a whole ton of phone calls that seniors didn't have what they needed. I remember, and I've told this story a few times, my own dad, who was a shut-in and quite ill during that time, and I remember delivering food to his home, and he said to me, by God, kid, I wouldn't know what I'd do without you right now, kiddo, because I can't get out to get food. And that was really staggering for me. And then Pavna called and said, you think we could do anything with this Good Food Box and maybe look at pivoting and adding some dry goods? And we began meeting with the wonderful people from United Way Retirees and developing that seniors food box. Probably one of the most important things that I learned from United Way Retirees, I was telling the story earlier, is we deliver a bag of fresh produce and a bag of dry goods to our seniors. And initially we said, we'll deliver this box. And a couple of the United Way retirees said, no. That box is gonna weigh way too much. We're talking seniors with health concerns, they can't carry that box. So we put it in 2 bags. Thank you, United Way retirees, because we wouldn't have known that. Not only that, the United Way retirees do reminder phone calls, so all of our seniors get a reminder call when their box is coming. And they build relationships and they get to know people, which is pretty staggering. And as Pavna mentioned, we also then got phone calls from both St. Lawrence and Queens about needing to help our post-secondary students. Many of us assume that our post-secondary students are fine. Let me tell you, folks, I remember speaking to one young woman, and I wish I had told this story on Monday when we were at, or Friday, wait a minute, what day was it? Friday, folks, when we were at the kickoff breakfast. I remember getting a call from a young single mom. She told me that she was working a number of hours and trying to go through school. And her hours had been cut, and she didn't know how she was going to make ends meet, and she didn't know if she was going to be able to even concentrate on her schooling. And she said to me, this makes such a difference. I can focus on trying to move myself out of poverty and going back to school. The other thing, story that I'd like to tell you, and I'm going to let Mel tell her story, is a story of when I got the opportunity to go back and actually work in our programs. So I help to deliver every now and then when we're short drivers, and sometimes we are. And I got to deliver this day to a gentleman, and I rang the doorbell, and it took a really long time for that gentleman to come to the door, and I thought, wow, what's taking so long? And when he opened the door, the gentleman was in a wheelchair, he was a double amputee, and he had oxygen. And he, getting to that door was a struggle for him. And I remember thinking, this is why we're doing this. This is what your dollar does, right? 66 cents a day so that we can deliver a food box that's worth $20. Thanks to our partners, it's actually worth 35 to 40 with partners from Diodato and No Frills because they give us great discounts. And I delivered that box, and I had a good conversation with the gentleman, and he said to me, this is the only fresh produce I get in the month. I don't know what I'd do without you. And I said to him, tell me how'd you hear about this program? He said, my daughter lives in St. Catharines, and she's a first responder, and she's been really worried about me during the pandemic because she knows she can't get down to help me. And she said she called the United Way in St. Catharines, and they put her in touch with the United Way here, And that local love came all the way here, and we've been delivering to him for quite some time. Before I left that gentleman's house, he said to me, "Oh, come here for a second before you go." And I come over and he shows me this lovely photo of his daughter in her uniform. And we had about a 15, 20-minute conversation. And I realized we were doing so much more than delivering food. We were delivering relationships and opportunities for people to have connections. You know, and most recently, one of our volunteer drivers came back and had been talking with one of our seniors on the delivery, and she said, "I heard a terrible story today." I said, "Well, what's going on?" She said, "I got a retiree, a senior who's retired. She broke her glasses. She can't watch TV. She can't read the newspaper. She can't do any of those things, and she's a shut-in." Well, we were able to make some connections to our practical assistance program, and we got her a pair of glasses. So that's what I mean about it being so much more than food that we're delivering. So I can tell you those stories, and I love to tell them. But with me today is Mel, and Mel can tell those stories from the heart and soul so much stronger than I can. And the courage it takes to speak to groups like this is tremendous. So I want to thank Mel before she comes up, because she's an amazing person. And she's also a volunteer with our program, and she'll tell you a little bit more about that. So without further ado, Mel, if you come up.
Thank you, Helen. I've been receiving the Good Food Box since it started 2 years ago, and it's been a tremendous help in the past 2 years. I would like to thank Kingston Community Health Center, the staff, the volunteers, and United Way for everything that they have done to keep the Senior Food Box running. The Senior Food Box provides fruits, vegetables such as apples, oranges, bananas, and lettuce, and other seasonal produce. And also in the food box is a various of staples, which could include cheese, crackers, canned tunas, and soup. And that's about a week's worth of food. This is one of the few times that I'm able to get any fruit and vegetables. As you all know, and as it all has been repeated here, is the cost of everything is going up, but our income has not. And being on disability pension, when currently 50% of it goes to rent, along with any other monthly expenses, living below the poverty line, shopping for essentials can be hard to manage. My story is that I live with type 2 diabetes. I've had both knees replaced, and I've also, as a result of a car accident and severe arthritis, I suffer with chronic pain with fibromyalgia, complicated. And apparently I got all the good genes in the family, so yeah. So, the apartment that I live in is on the second floor walk up, and to go up and down the stairs is painful, with 26 stairs to climb, I counted. So as you can imagine, to go out to the store entails me catching the bus, shopping, and then getting home. And then I need to get everything up those 20 plus stairs. And I still have to put the stuff away. I hate shopping. Okay, in the end, I can be in such pain that I can barely move for days afterwards. Having the Senior Food Box delivered to the door is a great help and takes the pressure off, both health-wise and financially. And Helen has delivered to my place, and so she knows. So, this year, I've been helping with the Senior Food Box to make reminder phone calls to other seniors, and I've talked a lot to the community. And those that are receiving the Senior Food Box are grateful for the help that they have received. Some of the clients have mobility issues and other health issues, or they just don't live anywhere near a store. And for those to go out and with the transportation cost and living on a pension, it's just, as you can imagine, hard to exist. For some of the seniors that I've reached, these calls are a friendly voice, especially those who are shut in or just lonely. And I can spend up to 10 to 15 minutes talking to them. As a matter of fact, I had one gentleman who's going to put me in his will because I phoned and reminded him about the box. I'm excited about that, I can't wait. So at this time, I would like to thank you all for listening, for your time of coming out, and your donation to the United Way. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mel. On behalf of Women United and the United Way, it takes a lot to stand in front of a crowd like this and to share your story. So really, from the heart, thank you. Yeah. And thank you, Helen, for all that you do in so many different areas. We just talked about one today. Our final speaker is Rhonda from Martha's Table. And Rhonda is one of the most creative people you'll meet. She always finds a way through. She just, right from the start, she needed takeout boxes because they decided to start doing takeout because they couldn't accommodate people. Then she decided to have an outdoor heated tent so she could serve people who still needed company. And then they started delivering food. Just amazing what you can do on a shoestring. So Rhonda, if you want to share, they deliver meal programs, and we'll talk about that.
I am also going to stick to my script because as I describe myself, I can go down a rabbit hole really quickly. And I want to get the information to you today that you need to hear. But what I'm going to present is more about how we feel, what's going on in the city, what's happening, the good things and the bad things. So I've been with Martha's Table since 2008, and it's been a privilege to be part of the service to the community, working towards reducing food insecurity for all. I may be about to repeat many of the things. It's hard going last, but I hope it does help underscore really what the need is in Kingston. Current statistics, as Pavna pointed out, are 1 in 7 households are living with food insecurity, and there's different levels of that. It ranges from mild to moderate to severe, but the bottom line is that means you don't know where you're getting your meal from today. Where is your food coming from? So I'd like to ask you just to pause for a moment and think about that, like personally. You don't know where you're going to have your dinner. Where are you going to get your meal from? Add to that, you have maybe dependents, children that are hungry. They're looking towards you for support. Elderly parents, maybe they need your help. Then there's the stress of juggling bills. Far too many people in this community, our city that we love so much, ask themselves every single day, am I going to buy groceries today or am I going to pay my rent? So that's really unfortunate, and that's what we're working with. This year at Martha's Table, we are serving 164% more meals per day prior to the pandemic in 2019. For perspective, our busiest days pre-pandemic were Thanksgiving and Christmas, and we prepped for days looking forward to this big family meal, and we served 350 people at that dinner. Every single day at Martha's right now, we're serving 450 meals. So it's a big jump. Same kitchen, same space, less volunteers. So people are doing what they can, but with the pandemic, it limits opportunity. So at Martha's, we always have a need. We're busy, as you can imagine. And I've always encouraged people to take part, whether they're using the services or just a community member that wants to come in and see what we're doing and take an active role. I'd like to share a story of one volunteer. It began his time at Martha's as a participant, and I'm going to call him Bill. Just a brief bit of his story, because he stands out for me and he made such an impact in what I'm doing. He was living with some mental health challenges and addictions, and he regularly visited Martha's several times a week. And one day he thought to himself, I don't know what spurred him, but I'm going to volunteer today. So he quickly found, he was really good at it. He enjoyed what he was doing. He could come and go as he needed to, and he recognized the real beauty in helping others. So when you have a need, it's nice to reach out and say, I'm going to help somebody else today. It's a great reward that volunteers, and myself, I see it daily. So just when Bill seemed to be moving forward and on a track that made him happy and content and connected with community and purpose, he was diagnosed with high blood pressure and diabetes. We supported him with those nutritious meals that we work hard on, but his symptoms worsened, and he ended up in the hospital repeatedly. And this is kind of depressing, but he lost parts, toes, foot, leg. And I only tell this story to underscore the need, how I think Helen had said so clearly, nutrition and health are tied in directly, and it's very serious. He's still alive, thankfully, and he battles his demons every single day. It's always a challenge. And from my observation, The challenges that lack of food insecurity cause go way beyond what the obvious is, and that's hunger. We've all been hungry. But it's hard to fully express the trauma that people are living with, both the physical, mental, and what the short-term and long-term impacts are. In our city, adults may choose to skip a meal or have smaller portions so their children can eat. In our city, people are socially isolated. It's harder for them to gain and to keep employment. They struggle with higher rates of illness, as mentioned with Bill, heart disease, diabetes, and mood disorders. Food insecurity makes people sick. It can help sustain the cycle of poverty. And fortunately, the happy part I'm getting to is that there are a lot of people in our city that care about what's going on. And I'm happy to be in this room with all of you because I know that you care. And the team at Martha's Table is also dedicated to providing meals without pause. And we do takeout meals 7 days per week, and door-to-door meals are delivered 5 days per week. I'm taking this opportunity, I'm kind of excited right now, because I'm happy to announce that we are hopefully next weekend expanding to have meals delivered 7 days per week. So the sad part is that we need to deliver meals 7 days a week, but the good news is it's going to happen. So we have a lot of people that simply cannot leave home. There's a variety of reasons that that's the case, but they still need that nutritious meal at no cost to them. We're pleased we can cook those extra meals, and we have a small army of volunteers that are able to deliver them to the person's door. This service, and I think Helen again touched on the same thing, it's not just the food, it's the connection. It's a quick check-in. Somebody's knocked on your door, I'm okay today, and they've gotten some nutritious meals. So it's a very positive impact on the community, and we're impacting the lives of the most vulnerable in our city. We get calls from multiple social support agencies asking us to add their clients to the program, and the public calls us directly as well. Another thing that we're fortunate to have in our city is United Way. They help people live healthier and happier lives by providing support for their partner agencies and the agencies that they support through specific programs. We couldn't do this without them. Several of our projects have been funded during the last couple of years, and for example, through the Community Investment Fund, we were able to provide 3,000 meals. I think that's an incredible contribution, so thank you for that. And there's other projects, of course, and we want to thank United Way for recognizing the need and helping us to keep those meals going out. We say we do it without pause, but there's a lot that goes into it, and that help was appreciated. This warehouse is also supporting what we do at Martha's. Sean described it, extra storage, and I think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Hundreds of loaves per day, apparently. But it makes an impact on what we're doing. We have food in that freezer right there as we speak. You know, it's in storage for Martha's. So I think in our city, it takes a village. One of my favorite sayings, but this is our village, so thank you for being part of it. And in conclusion, through everyone's efforts, there is hope. We can make Kingston livable and a healthy, happy place for everyone where they feel they're part of something special, but we have to work together. Thank you.
So thank you for that. I know it's a lot to absorb. We will open it up for questions right now. Lori's going to facilitate that. We do have a wireless mic, so we'll come around. If you do have questions, just raise your hand. And then we have our panelists at the side and at the back.
Okay, I don't know if you're like me, but wow. I just learned a lot, and I am overwhelmed with how much enthusiasm and passion you all have for what you do. And well, Bhavna said it touches your heart, just how fortunate we are to have these folks helping out our community. Did I hear clap? Because I thought that was a good idea. So on to the Q&A. So let's get things rolling. Sue.
Thank you. This is actually a question for the warehouse. I know how much work and planning went into this, and I'm sure you are aware of the efficiencies and all those things. Were there any surprising results coming from this? Things that you hadn't expected would happen with the opening of the warehouse?
So we're going back to Emma at the back if you're looking around. Thanks, Emma.
Surprising. The overwhelming amount of product coming in, I guess, would be the really surprising part. I went away for a holiday, and we knew there was a big event happening. So I told the team, keep working on distribution, keep working on distribution. I walked back in when I got back from holidays, and there were pallets. And I looked at them and I was like, what happened? We just got another 27 pallets of product that came in. So I think that large amount of product that's coming in was shocking. As Sean mentioned, Nestle's constantly calling us. We're getting more and more stuff from all of our partners that donate. So that would be one of the really big things. And then just adjusting to having all of the equipment. When you're not used to having that, once again, another thing, I never thought I would have my forklift license. So just having those types of tools that makes everything so much easier. I know for Ayla, when it comes to harvest time, them being able to pull in with their trucks with, the big boxes filled with apples or squash, and just being able to lift those off with the forklift instead of having to hand bomb everything. So I think some of those things would be the surprising things, the ability that we have. There's always lots of little things that you make adjustments. We have moved things around in this warehouse constantly. You'll notice there's a lot of things on wheels. So it's constantly changing, constantly moving. The more partners that come on board, the more adjustments we make. And it's like a really big game of Jenga or Tetris in here. So I think that would probably be it.
Okay, thank you. We have a question right over on oh, okay, sorry. Hey, go ahead.
Hi, my question is a follow-up. How do you keep track of your inventory of food? Do you have a system you're using, like the technology specifically, or how do you do it?
We're working on that and getting down the fine details. You can see over here we have some scales set up with clipboards. So within the warehouse, we're starting to track some of those. I'd say smaller items that come in on a daily basis. For example, we're working with Queens right now and doing some of their pickups. So we come in, we weigh it. We have some general weights for different items. And then with some of the items that come through, if Sean gets an email, from Nestle, for example, it lists all of those items. So we kind of have that. It goes over to Sean.
And it's different for each organization that works in here too, right? So Lionhearts has a part, but everybody else does. So they're tracking all of those things the way that they've done. And that actually then pulls into our metrics at the end of the year. So we can actually say how much has gone through. So it's pretty remarkable.
So my question is general for anyone, because everything I heard today seems like you need quite a few people to deliver the services that you're delivering, like lots and lots of volunteers. I was just wondering, what the challenges are in making sure you have that volunteer army, given the people are relying on you, 365 days a year. And are there any specific skill sets that you need that you find difficult in getting?
Who wants to take that?
And you can go up to
Okay,
the front
Helen,
mic, maybe,
you wanna pop
Helen?
up here? Helen?
I wouldn't say so much skill sets, but probably our biggest challenge in the last little while is as people have gone back to work from the pandemic, we had tons of drivers available to deliver stuff, but not as many now because they've gone back to work. So volunteer drivers are something that we always need. And if I could, I'd like to go back to the question that someone asked about some of the unforeseen things that you've got from the space. Before we moved into this space, Sean was kind enough to let us use space at Kingston Gospel Temple. We were packing our food boxes at the health center, and then we were asked to be a vaccine clinic. And suddenly our entire building needed to be used for that. So we were using the Gospel Temple. So we used the back door. We went up 4 or 5 stairs, and our volunteers would go back down 4 or 5 stairs and load the cars. So the change, the big thing I've noticed is how happy the volunteers are that they're here, because they're no longer schlepping it up and down 4 and 5 stairs. And probably the biggest thing for me is one of my staff who's been with me for almost 20 years and has been helped with the food box for that long. We have a set of rollers, and you'll see them at the back. And we had been moving them around when we were doing the Good Food Box from all our different sites. We never had a home for this stuff. And she said to me, we got a home finally, where we can actually pack those boxes, use the rollers, use the conveyor stuff, and go out the doors comfortably and safely. I think that's one of the biggest things that was a huge surprise, is how happy the volunteers are with the difference in the space here, because we can do it right. So that's a couple of points.
Thanks, Helen. Who do we have? Yeah, Linda Ann. Kim's bringing it.
Just wondered, what's the relationship of the food banks to the various agencies, and how is that connecting?
So the food bank was very involved in our initial discussions. Actually, Desiree is here. Can I put you on the spot? Do you want to address that? Okay, I'll continue. Yeah. So the food bank was very much involved in the discussions. At this point, they're not a partner because they have enough space, but were they ever to need space, or if they ever had got a large donation and wanted to use the space, they just have to pick up the phone and call Emma, who always says yes. Desiree, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I can just add to that. There's definitely ongoing discussions with it. I think the food bank really had processes that were already sort of entrenched and off and running. They're dealing with some of the same challenges that I've heard today. And so I think they might just be sort of trying to catch up a little bit. But there are ongoing discussions, I think, as to how they'll fit in. And certainly I think the group that's been involved in this has been wonderful in terms of incorporating them in where they can.
And I just wanted to say one more thing about the warehouse. The United Way itself uses the warehouse. So you know the backpack program? We packed 1,300 backpacks here. It was so wonderful. We didn't have to keep packing them up because Food Sharing Project needed the space, or the Gospel Temple needed the space. Our Tampon Tuesday, we will be using this space as well. And certainly Food Bank and every agency that needs this, you know, addictions, mental health, we have Carol here. We distribute to about, Kim, about 20-something agencies. For Backpack, Tampon Tuesday, the coats drive that's coming in winter. So if you have any coats you want to get rid of, hold on to them. Do not get rid of them. We have the coat drive coming in November.
You just touched on it. I was curious about if there was any involvement in feminine hygiene needs in the community, as well as babies and toddlers, like diapers, that kind of thing.
Yeah. The menstrual hygiene products are certainly one that we started, was it 3 years ago? Again, through Women United. And we get incredible amounts of product that is then distributed to all our agencies, who are very grateful for that. And through them, they give to their clients. We haven't yet started working on diapers. Right now, the food bank is the only one that I know of that distributes that consistently.
Thank you. I don't know if one or two of you would like to comment about homeless people, you know, who don't have kitchens, you can't deliver food to them. How do you reach out to them, and sort of how effective is it? And is there anything that, you know, needs to be done systemically on that aspect?
So maybe Rhonda, and then maybe Sean.
That's a great question, because it is a challenge. And what we do at Martha is we have our takeout available, and we provide everything needed for a meal: forks, knives, and the meal itself is prepared. We do our best to deliver. We have met one gentleman at a bus stop as part of our delivery program. We tee it up, and he's at the bus stop at the time, and our delivery goes there. So we're doing what we can. We've considered going to encampments, but we haven't taken that step. I'm not sure what the best way to approach that is, but it's something that we're thinking about because we know there's a need. Yeah.
And while we're waiting for Sean, just about the encampments, we actually support a program that delivers Lionhearts. Sean will talk about that, but people in the encampments can access food through the Integrated Care Hub. Carol and Sean are both here.
Yeah, and that was actually part of the program that we actually developed specifically at the request of the United Way a number of months ago. There was actually, during the pandemic itself, a number of people who didn't have kitchens, who also needed to be able to eat if they were in isolation. So if they've been said, hey, you need to stay home for the next 10, 12, 14 days, what do you do if you don't have a way to cook? Right? So our meals then got delivered, along with a lot of fresh access food on a pretty regular basis through that period of time. And the secondary part she alluded to was our Meals to Go program. So we deliver a lot of meals to a lot of the different shelters and agencies, the Integrated Care Hub, some of the food sharing projects, the isolation centers now, so that folks can access it where they are. Yeah.
I just want to speak to that question too quickly and give a quick shout out to the city's sleeping cabins program, because our farm, our new community training farm, is right behind Center 70, which is currently the summer location of the city's sleeping cabin program. So those folks, I'm not actually sure how many cabins they have there now. I think it's 15 or something like that, but 10? But they have access to a shared kitchen inside Center 70. And we've been engaging a number of those residents to come over to the farm, and a number of them are coming over on a regular basis and actually harvesting food for themselves and taking it back and preparing it in the kitchen there at Center 70. And it's been really wonderful to connect with those folks, and I know that a lot of them have expressed that they are so grateful to be able to have that agency and being able to go and harvest for themselves and accessing foods that they may not have had access to in quite a while. A number of them have also mentioned that they grew up in agricultural communities and things like that, so that it's meaningful for them in that sense. But I really just wanted to bring this up because the city is currently running a public engagement survey about the continuation of the Sleeping Cabins program, and having that access to the shared kitchen is such an important part of that project. So I'd encourage people to participate in that consultation, and also that we want to continue pursuing that partnership and making sure that there's garden space and things like that available at wherever that project ends up in hopefully a permanent home. Oh yeah, well, yeah, our fresh food market stands that are ways that people can access the food, but it doesn't necessarily solve the kitchen problem. But yeah.
Okay, I'm watching the clock. We're watching the clock. Let's do one more question. Oh, 2 hands.
I have to say I'm absolutely blown away with the coordination and cooperation between all of the groups. It's just mind-blowing. The question I have is, how do you coordinate the volunteers, and how do you reach out and show where you need holes filled?
That's a great question. We're still working on it. Right now, each agency kind of fends for themselves, and a lot of volunteers, some of you are in this room, kind of do 2 or 3 agencies they volunteer at. We do have, the United Way does run a volunteer center. We just have to spend some time and make that much, we need to improve that a little bit so more volunteers can use that service and more agencies can use the service. But we do have a centralized, coordinated approach.
I think we'll do one more question because you shot your hand up so quickly.
Thanks. I'm not sure who can answer this. Maybe Sean. This is an amazing facility, and there is a tremendous amount of product here. There must be times when you have, whether it's one agency or more than you can use. Do you ever have too much? And what would you do? I mean, when you get skids of things in that can be kept, like cans of tomatoes is one thing, but fresh produce only lasts a certain period of time. So how do you coordinate that amongst all the agencies to make sure that there's not a lot of wastage?
Well, one, there's definitely more need than there is product. So there are moments in time where we actually have too many things. Like at harvest time, tomatoes. Wow, right? But we've actually formed some really great partnerships with some organizations like some of the culinary programs in high schools. They have a lot of kids that can really do some remarkable things with tomatoes, whether that's soup or stews or salsas, and then that big freezer over there. They get vacuum packed, put in the freezers, and then taken down to the agencies that need them when they need them. We also have a really great relationship with some farmers who, and definitely there's product that comes in and we sort it, and there's some stuff that's not edible or not actually going to be suitable to send, and that goes back to the animals.
So just once again, I want to thank you all for taking the time. We will do the tour in a couple of minutes. Emma has volunteered to add more steps to her Fitbit just to show you around. But it is pretty fascinating. It's not far to walk, but I would encourage you to go with Emma. I do want to thank our speakers, not just for coming out today, but for all the work you do every single day. I know Pat Murphy, one of our volunteers, says United Way agencies never sleep, and it's true. They never sleep. They're always working. They're always thinking of how they can do better and better. So thank you very much. Our campaign chair, Jane Lapointe, could not be here today, but she did want to, and I can never, Jane is so articulate, I cannot even pretend to repeat what she would have said if she were here. But on her behalf, just wanted to thank you as Women United for all that you do and the support that you give. I don't know if you know this, but over 400, I think we put it in the email, but we have 635 leaders of the way. People who give $1,200 or more to the United Way through the annual campaign every year. Of that, 425 are women who give individually or in a partnership with their spouse or partner. So hats off to all of you. Last year, Women United members raised over $2 million off the $3.8 million campaign. So really awesome, impressive. Yeah, I know, it's amazing. The power of women, and I know Sean's here, the power of women and Sean. But I also wanted to mention Jessica Bain-Hogan has very generously once again offered a Women United Challenge grant. So any woman who donates $1,200 for the first time will be matched 100%. Anyone who increases their donation 10% or more the increase will be matched. In addition, we have a very generous couple who wish to stay anonymous right now. They are also matching. So if you increase or if you give for the first time as a leader, you're actually tripling your contribution. And then if you're Empire Life, it's 4 times. So because they corporately match, so go for it. I know I haven't even come close to what Jane would say, so I'm not going to even try to, but I just wanted to thank you personally for all that you do. When we started Women United, it was very exciting. And it's really exciting to see how interested you are in the issues that face us. We will be sending you a survey, and I would encourage you to tell us what else you want to hear about, and we'll design the next session in the new year around that. Lori, did you want to wrap up?
I will wrap up, and there have been many thanks to these wonderful folks. And what I would like to do is start a little round of applause for Bhavna and the United Way team. Thank you, everyone. So is Emma's there. She's warming up right now to give us a tour. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I echo what Bhavna said. This group is amazing. It's a privilege for me to be co-chairing with Jessica and to see you all here today interested in these issues. Thanks.